Christmas. It's a time of hope, but the hope of freedom may be all but gone for a former Winter Garden businessman. Today marks the 40th anniversary of the brutal murders that sent Tommy Ziegler to death row. WESH 2's Greg Fox talked exclusively with Ziegler about a last-ditch effort to clear his name.
Oh, Merry Christmas!
Downtown Winter Garden is a living, breathing Hallmark holiday greeting card. But there is a ghost of Christmas past that haunts this West Orange County town.
We didn't have the evidence that we have now.
I got hit over the back of the head, slapped, kicked. I was shot. It was a bloody mess.
Tommy Ziegler talks like a victim, but is in fact the notorious convicted murderer of his wife and 3 others.
There is not a day that goes by that I don't think of Eunice. Not a day, not a single day.
So far, that's more than 14,000 days awaiting a death warrant for the Christmas Eve 1975 murders inside his furniture store. Wife Eunice, her parents Perry and Virginia Edwards, and customer Charlie Mays were shot, the men beaten. Ziegler, that's him on a gurney, claims he was shot by the real killers. He later appeared remorseful as he exited the funeral home. But the state won a conviction alleging Ziegler did it to collect on his wife's insurance policies.
I'm not guilty of what I'm charged with, and I don't have any qualms about dying.
I was sentenced to death, and I fully expect that to be carried out unless we can get this evidence in court and prove it.
Ziegler has been granted a hearing, likely in February, to argue for retesting of DNA on some of his and the victim's clothing, believing modern science will prove he's not the killer. Something State Attorney Jeff Ashton aims to fight.
This is never going to end. If Mr. Ziegler got every DNA test he asked for today, he'd find something else to ask for.
You think he's just desperate to survive?
I think he's desperate to survive. I mean, that's the history of this case.
Now, who pulled the trigger, I can't tell you.
Never giving up on what she calls a journey for justice is Ziegler's cousin, Connie Crawford. That's her in news clippings with Ziegler shortly after the murders. She urges people to read the mountain of information on websites like this that claim the state bungled evidence then and is covering it up now.
If the state wants to lie, they can lie. I think that they just don't want to lose a case.
They lose cases every day.
Not like this one.
In a battle to clear his name and save his own life, Ziegler is trying to rewrite the story of Winter Garden's darkest Christmas.
The record in this case has never been brought before the people.
That's all I want is the truth.
Greg Fox, WESH 2 News.
For much more on the Tommy Ziegler Christmas murders, head to WESH.com. There's a link on our homepage where you'll find an interview with one of his family members and get a first-hand account of the murder scene from a former WESH 2 anchor who covered the story 40 years ago.
Her desire to be a champion has been unquenchable, but her journey to get there has been both tragic and challenging.
Tonight in this exclusive report, WESH 2's Greg Fox takes us to the beaches of Brevard County, where a teen is overcoming some tremendous odds.
I feel the need to get back out there because it's just awesome to surf.
And yet, Storm Portman's goal of becoming a world champion surfer was nearly wiped out. Twice.
Don't know if I stepped on it or not, but it just bit my foot.
That was Storm in 2013 after a shark chewed into her left heel, leaving a gaping wound.
Are you going to go back surfing as soon as the stitches are out?
Of course. I hope it's in like 2 days. I want to go surfing.
The 14-year-old did get back out, beating women twice her age. She's the reigning Eastern Surfing Association girls champion. But January 15th brought disaster. Her board sliced into her left eye.
And I turned around to get my board to look in, and it came and hit me in the eye.
And whammo, right there in the eye.
Yeah.
You can see how the lens there in the right side photo was sheared off.
The laceration, which was right here.
Dr. Gary Ganaban performed emergency surgery.
It was a 10 out of 10. And at the time, I thought that she'd probably lose her eye.
That day, he was actually telling my mom that I was going to lose my eye and that I wasn't, like, it wasn't able to be saved.
I lost it.
Storm's mother was devastated.
I'm sorry. I know that she's strong, but it's just an eye. But it scared me.
And that's when she says the miracle happened.
Okay, look over here, right here. Perfect.
Storm saw a glimmer of light and motion.
I was like, oh my gosh, I could be okay from this.
Oh, you make those look good.
But 6 weeks after the injury and being outfitted with goggles, she's back on her board and riding a new wave to her dream.
It felt good to be back out in the water after being out of it for such a long time. You get to share it with your friends and your family, and you get to just be out with something that God created.
In Brevard County, Greg Fox, WESH 2 News.
She is one tough cookie.
Having a good attitude, what a difference it makes.
How about that?
A WESH 2 News investigation has uncovered some major changes to safety procedures on board airport trams.
These changes were put in place following the death of Adam Lee on May 8th. He's the OIA passenger who fell through a tram window when it stopped suddenly. Now, among the changes now in place, more secure windows, daily safety checks, and additional training for some workers.
And the report also reveals another incident following Lee's death that could have put passengers at risk. WESH 2's Greg Fox reports.
This is the airport people mover vehicle shown here missing the windshield, from which Adam Lee fell to his death May 8th. He was ejected when it suddenly stopped. But how could the glass give way? Are thousands of other passengers a day at risk? Now, WESH 2 News has obtained nearly 500 pages of emails, reports, service logs, and other records that show Lee's death triggered an emergency order by Bombardier, the company that operates the trams, to inspect the glass and hardware on trains at airports in Orlando, Atlanta, Pittsburgh, Denver, and London. Records also show that between May 12th and June 9th, 11 windshields and the gaskets, or seals that lock them in place, were replaced on all of the Orlando International Airport people movers, but not without problems. A Bombardier daily report reads, the replacement windshields were received but are not cut properly and do not fit, and they had 0 spare windshields. Getting impatient, an airport supervisor wrote Bombardier an email saying, we need to find out what the heck and get the new product in as fast as possible. There are 36 front and rear facing windows on the airport tram system, and it's unknown if all will be replaced or possibly redesigned. The airport's chief operating officer told me this May 20th.
Whether bolting them is the answer, I'm not the engineer to say that, but we have asked them to look at it because we want to make sure this does absolutely not happen again.
While Orlando police continue investigating the fatal accident, an airport official told WESH 2 News 2 Bombardier workers gave the manual controller to Lee, who accidentally dropped it. Those workers were fired. And we are live overlooking the guideway of the tram system on the west side of the airport. And again, the documents that we've been going through the last couple of days also show that some workers have been retrained. Some of the workers for Bombardier have been drug tested. And the airport now requires of the company daily safety logs on the operations of these trams for passenger safety. Brett?
And Greg, did your investigation reveal any other incidents where people may have been at risk on these airport trams?
It did. In fact, on May 23rd, there are records in here that talk about an incident that was a, quote, near miss. And briefly, what happened was that one of the trams was being operated manually, just as it was when Adam Lee died. And apparently, another airport worker who wasn't supposed to be on it got onto the train. And at the same time, they discovered later that the doors at the terminal had not closed behind that train. We're going to examine that more closely coming up, all new at 6. Brett?
All right, Greg Fox, live for us tonight outside OIA. Greg, thank you.
Efforts to preserve the century-old Tinker Field in Orlando today take on special meaning.
Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. delivered a speech at Tinker Field during the height of the civil rights movement. Months ago, the city proposed leveling the old grandstand and building a monument at Tinker, but it was rejected, and people continue to fight to restore the field. WESH 2's Greg Fox reports.
While the reconstructed Citrus Bowl has made it unsuitable to play baseball here at Tinker Field anymore, remember that nearly 51 years ago, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. stood on this pitcher's mound and addressed people in the stands, nearly 1,000 of them, here in this Paramore neighborhood.
Rise up.
Just 4 months before the Civil Rights Act became law, Dr. Martin Luther King stepped onto Tinker Field on a cold March day to address people sitting in seats usually off limits.
So they had a black section and a white section.
Yeah, they had a black section.
James Perry was there and has several photos of him and others who embraced King's message of peaceful protest. He also witnessed the legendary play of Jackie Robinson, the first African-American major leaguer. So it broke his heart to see Tinker abandoned as the Citrus Bowl was given new life. He wants the old ball field saved.
I would like to see some kind of tribute to Martin Luther King and Jackie Robinson.
But he was really letting us know that you can't be satisfied with the way conditions are.
Becky Ford attended Dr. King's speech with her future husband, former Orlando City Commissioner Knapp Ford. She says King's message of equality is worth preserving, but she's against spending millions to try and revive Tinker.
I think there are so many things that we can do to preserve his legacy, as opposed to saying, well, this spot, we should reserve this spot.
While Orlando's mayor and staff have made no further suggestions on what to do for Tinker Field at this moment, some are suggesting that it could be suitable for baseball again simply by shifting it toward left field, realigning it, keeping the bleachers in place, and bringing in new baseball. In Orlando, Greg Fox, WESH HD News.
You're watching WESH 2.
WESH 2 News continues to bring you the fallout of the crackdown on local pill mills. Tonight, the rise of heroin.
As more people turn to this comeback drug, more people are overdosing and dying in Florida. WESH 2's Greg Fox shows us why in a special report on the heroin antidote.
I did have friends that passed away because of using. They did overdose and die, but that didn't seem to stop me.
Joan is a recovering heroin addict. One by one, she watched her friends die while she kept using.
When you're using, a lot of times you feel invincible and you feel like it's never going to happen to you.
But heroin, a cheaper alternative to pain meds, has been killing at an alarming rate. Statewide in 2012, heroin overdose deaths were up 90%. Just in Orange County last year, heroin overdoses were up 58%. Overdose deaths were up 29%.
If you use too much, you stop breathing. You forget to breathe. You're so stoned that you don't remember to breathe, and that's how you die.
WESH 2 medical expert Dr. Todd Husty showed us the so-called heroin antidote carried by paramedics. Its brand name is Narcan. Generic is naloxone. As a shot or nasal spray, it counteracts the effects of heroin and other opioids like OxyContin.
I mean, completely reverse it.
But the Network for Public Health Law reports Florida is lagging behind most states when it comes to getting Narcan into the hands of all first responders, including EMTs and police.
All in favor signify by saying yay.
Florida took a big step in that direction when lawmakers passed a bill that will empower all first responders to administer Narcan. Orlando Senator Geraldine Thompson voted for it.
The bottom line is that people are not dying from the medication when they have overdosed. They're dying because they did not get it.
Even if paramedics are called to help a person who is overdosing, they may never make it alive to an emergency room. That's why something like this could be a game changer. It's a naloxone emergency rescue kit. It comes with the drug, and it comes with full instructions. It comes from the Metro Louisville Harm Reduction Task Force, one of the organizations that trains ordinary citizens how to administer the drug, which in Kentucky can legally be obtained. Pennsylvania now has an open prescription for family and friends of addicts to get Narcan at any pharmacy. Dr. Husty urges caution here because too much naloxone can cause seizures or death.
You should be able to have naloxone in your medicine cabinet with some training.
But Jones says the risk is worth having the heroin antidote on hand.
You think naloxone or Narcan should be in the medicine cabinet?
Yes, I do. I think it can be like an EpiPen.
For people who have severe allergic reactions?
Exactly. It would save a tremendous amount of lives, I believe.
Greg Fox, WESH 2 News.